What is up? Welcome to another episode of Rockets Talk. We are back with a lot to talk about, bro. The Houston Rockets just had a heartbreaking loss last night against the lowly Blazers, man. That so much to unpack from that game. I think, in my opinion, that game was like a summation of everything that is wrong with the Houston Rockets, and captured in one quarter, well, actually in the whole game. But what? First of all, what has been up with you, and what did you think about that game, man?
Man, well, what's been up with me? I'm still busy. I think we're both crazy busy, but
Yes, sir.
if you can see the shirt, the Texas Longhorns are keeping me happy in terms of sports right now. That's a different sport. The game, I actually am fine with it. Obviously, it was a bad performance, but I just hate the way the NBA does these back-to-backs with the same opponent. I think the product takes a hit because it's hard to beat the same team twice in a row.
Yeah.
And you also just get this weird energy. Basketball is one of those, like, it's not like the only other sport that does these numerous games against the same opponent in a row is baseball. And baseball has pitchers that change each game. So it's like it works. But with basketball, we have, you're just playing the same team twice. So when we blew the Blazers out on Friday, I was like, okay, they're going to lose that second game. And that's what happened. And we could talk about, how it went down. And I think that maybe we saw Jaylen Green take a seat for most of the fourth quarter, all the crunch time minutes as well. And I think that's going to be a big topic of conversation. But, they struggle to score. They struggle to shoot. And then Donovan Clingan was kind of a problem at times as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a problem. I think the back-to-back part, I guess I'll give them I think it was harder for the Blazers, a team that's on the road on the back-to-back. So you're sleeping in a hotel.
Well, I don't mean back-to-back in terms of like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying
I know what you're
team.
saying. I know, just the same team, because it's hard. Like you heard Craig and Ryan talk about it. It's hard to beat the same team twice in a row. Because at that point, there's a level of just human nature where it kind of goes back and forth. Like you have to really be dominant to just beat a team 2 games in a row, especially 2 days in a row. So you knew they were going to come back fighting. I think, you look at, like, overall, I think, first of all, the reaction to last night was a bit overblown by some of the fan base. I think it's a bit overreactive. Obviously, there are some things, and we're going to talk about them, that we need to address, that have been trending towards this game. But I think if you look at the Rockets team over the last 10 games, we're 7-3. The only losses we had are to this one on the second night of a back-to-back, even though it was against a bad team. A one possession loss on the second night of a back-to-back to Milwaukee, literally 1 point. And then going against probably the best team in the league when they were hitting on all cylinders in OKC on the road and got mollywopped. So other than that, we've been just destroying the competition across. And so it's really hard for me to get too angry about an individual loss. But I think what I'm seeing is that there's some underlying tension that this team has. Just like you said before we got on, we're kind of a weird team. And I think it really starts with the shooting, bro. Last night, the Rockets shot from the field 41% as a team on 2-pointers, 25% on 3-pointers, going 8 for 32. The Blazers shot 40% from three. To me, that's not just because of it's a back-to-back, because the Blazers were on a back-to-back. They still were able to shoot 40%. I saw a stat on Twitter, or somebody pulled a chart that showed that Şengün had 15 potential assists last night. And it damn sure looked like it, because they tried to go to some of their best sets that we have, even though we don't have a lot of great sets. They went to them. They went to the elbow actions with Şengün. They went to the pick and roll with Fred and Şengün. They went to the post-ups. All of them did what they did, generated double teams and kick out. And we got a bunch of wide open shots for Fred, for Jalen, for Jabari, for Dylan, and guys could just not hit the shots. And to me, this is the theme of this Rockets team right now. They're not hitting shots. And if you're not going to hit shots, as good as your defense is, all it takes is one team to have a normal or above average shooting game, and you're going to lose. And I think that's, to me, is the cap on what I think makes me uneasy about this team, is that in the NBA, there's more teams that are going to be able to score on more nights than you can just clamp them and impose your defensive will on them. And if we want them to reach at least, like to me, first round playoffs, a good series, that shooting has to get a lot better. A lot better. The question is, how does that happen? I think that's really where it's kind of a mystery right now, bro.
Yeah, I mean, look, let me say this first of all. The Blazers actually aren't that bad lately, at least. Maybe they end up being that bad, but they've played pretty decently ever since Rob Williams came back, ever since they started clinging over DeAndre Ayton, who's not very good. And Scoot Henderson didn't play against the Rockets either, and I think he hasn't really been that good for them either. So I think they were forced to play some of their better players, and they have played better since those guys have played. They beat Minnesota back to back, I think twice in a row, for example. So they've got some good wins. So it wasn't going to be easy. But shooting is the problem, right? I mean, there's just no way around that. Jaylen Green, 1 of 9 from 3. Fred VanVleet, 0 of 6 from 3, right? When your starting backcourt combines for 1 of 15 from 3, and your team goes 8 of 32 from 3, I mean, that's just not good, right? It's hard to win games in the NBA when that's the case. Off the bench, I mean, ironically enough, Amen Thompson hit more threes than Fred did last night. Amen was 1 of 1 from 3, which is crazy, right? Reed was 2 of 4 from 3. He only played 11 minutes. I think some changes need to be made in terms of, do you play Reed more because he can shoot? He's starting to let it fly more. He's been very tentative. Last couple games, I feel like when he catches it, he's shooting it. I feel like someone has given him the edict and told him like, hey, you're a shooter. We need you to shoot. So shoot it. Aaron Holiday. I know you don't like Aaron Holiday.
No. Let me officially apologize to Aaron Holiday. He's actually had a wonderful season, and I take everything back I said, Aaron. You're.
I mean, he shoots, right, and he shoots with confidence. That's the thing. There's no sometimes irrational confidence is a good thing because you just don't give a damn, and if you have the ability to back it up, sometimes it works, right? But that's why Aaron Holiday would play over Jalen last season, and that's why it would work, because sometimes we just needed that kick out to be able to hit the shot. In a lot of ways, this team reminds me of and I tweeted this, but this Rockets team, it's like watching the grit and grind, the grit and grind Grizzlies. You got Şengün as Gasol, you got Fred as Mike Conley, you got Dylan Brooks as Tony Allen, and you can go down the list, right? So it's like, that's the vibe, right? They're just a grinded out possession to possession. When they make their shots, they will blow you out. But the problem is that they're just not going to be able to make their shots, right? So ultimately, if they make the playoffs, this lack of shooting is ultimately what's going to sink them at some point. I think what we're looking at right now could win a round. I think this team could win a playoff series. I don't think they can win 2. Or they could, but I wouldn't bet on it. But I think their defense is good enough to win them 1 if they can overwhelm a team defensively. But they really just got to figure out offensively, what are we? Who are we? Right? Down the stretch, they just went to Şengün and they fed him, and he produced, right? He got blocked by Denny Avdia, and that kind of turned things at the very, very end. But leading up to that, he was driving, scoring at will, driving, kicking. It's kind of like when a football team is trying really hard to establish their identity, right? And they're trying to set up the run and make the right third down pass and blah, blah, blah. And they're having a ton of trouble doing it. And then all of a sudden the 2-minute drill hits and they're just boom, 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 drive down the field and they score, right? It's kind of like that.
Colorado.
Yeah.
That's Colorado.
Oh, I can't believe they lost, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I was hoping to make the Big 12 title, in the playoffs. Yeah. But that's what it feels like, right? It's like they're trying to be this team, and then when it comes down to it and they throw that all out the window and they just go to their big dogs, they can actually start to change things a little bit. But that's the issue, man. I mean, Fred, and we didn't even talk about Fred at the end. You said he crashed out, which I think
that was totally when he, not even that, to me, the crash out started before that actual telling the referees and cussing them, each of them out individually, which I love that stuff. Y'all seen the clips of Fred telling about Ben Taylor?
Yep.
Goated clip. I think he's like a very calm, angry person. Fred is the most calmest, and to me that tells me he's crazy. That's number one operator. Fred VanVleet's a crazy dude. Do not mess with Fred. He is the calmest, angry person ever. He was very calculating. He walked over to each one of them, pointed, and cussed them out. You up, BAMF? Huh? I don't know what they're gonna do with him.
Yeah,
I don't know. Probably fine.
I love it. But on the other hand, I'm like, damn, Fred, you're supposed to be the captain.
He knew. Okay, so the crash out started. One, his shooting was a crash out. But regardless of that, the plays leading up to that, he missed like a wide open three. They come back. He was getting hunted on defense by the guards, Simons and what's the other kid from Canada's name? Both Sharp.
Shaden Sharp.
Yeah, they were both getting him on defense. Then to me, like, okay, the last shot, why try to draw a three, like a 3-point foul, bro? Like, you know, these refs are not going to call that on the last play. We like it, like even if the game was called tightly on the last play, more likely than not, the refs are going to let the teams. I mean, I've seen some egregious fouls to close out games that they just don't call because they're not going to let the fate of the game be dictated by like a foul bait most of the time, right? So to me, like that, just you're shooting your team in the foot. It's taking a terrible shot, and to me, his late game ball handling, his late game decision making has been problematic since he's been in Houston. I think Fred is one of the most important players for this turnaround. I'm not taking anything away from him, but times like last night just show you why I don't think ultimately when the team reaches their that level where they're going to be, you know, one of those perennial playoff contenders, that I don't think he's going to be a guy that's manning the ball because he just doesn't make the right decisions. Like, and to your point, he's a vet. A lot of games our vets hurt us more than our young guys do.
I mean, I thought Dylan was about to get a technical with the game on the line.
Yeah, like just unhinged, man. It's like having a Draymond Green characters as a point guard and a small forward. Like you gotta, like, I don't know. To me, so that was concerning for me to see. But I think they knew the game was over at that point. To your point about the plays that they were running, so going to Şengün, to me, that's always like a cop out. Like we know we could do that, and it's similar to what you said. Even though, like with the analogy of the football, it's like, okay, you've been trying to run the ball, which is us trying to generate 3-point shots. It's not working. So now let's go to old reliable. I'm going to use the Colorado example. Let's just throw to Travis Hunter. The only problem is they're going to put a corner, a linebacker, and a safety to bracket Travis Hunter. And if you're going to keep going there, at some point, they're going to stop you because they know that's all you want to do. And that's my problem with Ime Udoka's offense is that, brother, like, we got to have more than two tricks in the bag, man. It is just, to me, that's been like a huge issue. Even the elbow actions they just started running, teams are starting to figure out. Go ahead.
Let me ask you, do you think it's Ime or do you think that, okay, three options. One, it's Ime. Two, it's the players unable to consistently execute because sometimes they come out the gate in the first quarter cutting, doing the right things. You see the action, and then as the game goes on, they just revert to what they always do. Or do you think three, it's both of those things?
I'm going to ask you this with a question. I'm going to rebut that or not rebut, just answer it with a question. If that was a Mike D'Antoni team and they had let's say they wanted to get into a certain action, whether it's pick and roll or whatever they want to run, do you think that every night he would allow whatever he called to not be ran on the court? Do you think that probably not, right?
But Mike D'Antoni's offense has always had a savant running them. So
that's a good point.
He was kind of reliant on, like, his whole thing was he gave free reign to the savant, right? And he trusted that player. You know, Nash,
I mean, the Russ adjustment, I love how they adjusted to Russ and his play style. They changed the offense for that. I guess Russ is not a savant to me, but he's a good point guard. The point I'm making is that at some point as a coach, I could say it's the players if it was like a game here and there, possessions here and there, but literally the whole tenure here has been the same thing. And if Ime, he can't have the title of being like this hard ass as a coach at the same time and say that, well, I don't know, I let the players, I tell them what I want to do, but they don't do it. That sounds like Stephen Silas talk to me. So I'm going to assume both to answer your question. I think that they have a plan that they want to execute, but he also trusts his players. I feel like he's a real players coach. He empowers them, which is great. I think when you empower younger players, you're going to have some. My problem is the Freds of the world. A lot of this, to me, I can understand if Jalen's doing this, but Fred VanVleet, he does like some of the wildest stuff, and just the decision making is just bad, bro. And I don't think Ime even like flinches at it. So I'm going to say both.
I'll say about, I mean, it's probably both. I think that's the right answer. I will say about Russ real quick. Absolutely not a savant, but to be fair, that adjustment was really just, hey, give Russ the ball and get out the way. So it was ISOing Russ. It wasn't even. I hesitate
Yes.
to call it an adjustment. I mean, because they went small.
That was a major. They changed the roster for him.
Well, they changed the roster. I'm just saying tactically, it was basically we're going to go small, and if you keep someone big on the court, we're going to attack that guy with Russell Westbrook. But James Harden still set it up though, right? So
True.
either way, so the offense, it's hard because we don't have. I know that it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of fans, but this team just doesn't have that many good offensive players. Like we tanked for 3 guys, okay? Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and Amen Thompson. Jalen Green and Jabari Smith are arguably, potentially, and I'm not counting Reed in this because he's too young. I don't really know what we had with Reed quite yet. So I'll go core 6, not core 7. Jalen and Jabari have arguably been the worst 2 of the 6, right? So, and they were the ones that were supposed to be the offensive, like, oh yeah, these are like offensive cornerstones that we're drafting. Jabari, scorer, at the very least a shooter, which lately he's been shooting better. So hopefully that comes back around. Jaylen Green, and maybe this can lead us in to the next part of the conversation, but Jaylen Green has not been that guy. And, it's I've been beating this drum for a while. So like, it's just funny to see, for example, on Twitter, it's funny to see certain folks finally just kind of like wave the white flag and be like, man, I don't even know what to say anymore. Because this is what I saw. I mean, I don't know if you remember my Jordan Clarkson tweet from like January, February of Jalen's rookie season. But what I saw that prompted that tweet was, I was like, wait a minute, man. 1, I don't think he can shoot. 2, I don't think he actually has like moves. He's just really athletic. He's got a couple moves, but he doesn't have like, ant type footwork to like go to his spot, get his shot, and then you're at the mercy of whether or not he makes the shot. And then the finishing, which has gotten better. So maybe not, maybe the finishing is not quite an issue. And also the playmaking. Like the playmaking just hasn't been good. So Jaylen Green, and I'm not saying he's the reason the Rockets are losing, but if he was living up to the billing, if he would even kind of live up to the billing, the Rockets don't lose a game like last night or some of these games that they've lost, right? Like they don't have the offense that they need to have, in part because the pieces they put to be those guys that drive the offense just aren't very capable of doing that. I mean, you look at his numbers across the board. Assist percentage down. It's like, I think it's career worst right now. Shooting, he's like 30.6 or 30.7% from 3, 38% overall from the field, career lows in both of those categories, career low from 2 as well. I think it's like 45% from 2. TS percentage is like 50, 51%. I think it's sub 51%. I don't even know what the effective field goal percentage is, but it's down. Assist to turnover ratio, I think it's 2.7-ish assists to about 2.4 turnovers per game, basically 1-to-1. In a lot of ways, statistically, it looks like his rookie season. He's even getting to the line less. To the line at like the same amount as his rookie season. So there is simply nothing to compensate for how poorly he's played. And then to top that all off and make it bad, make it from bad to worse, is that he leads the team in field goal attempts. He leads the team in usage as far as like, the main players go. I don't know if Holiday randomly has like 30% usage or something, but as far as the main
He
players,
leads them. He's 26%. Alp's 25.
I mean, he is arguably, I could make an argument that he is the worst high usage player in the starter in the NBA. Like as far as like a guy that has this much field real estate in the offense.
Yeah, he is second to worst behind Kyle Kuzma.
There you
second
go.
to last. So and I was looking this up, and basically I looked up players who have more than 15 field goal attempts and compared it to their shot points. So points per shot, basically. And 63 players includes all the big names in the NBA. Only Rocket that has more than I think 15 field goals in a game. Nobody else made that list on the Rockets team, and he is like 1.1 points per shot. And the only person that's worse than is Kyle Kuzma, who's at like 1.03. So and it's crazy. So let me see. In fact, let me show the top of that list. Just for reference, is Giannis at 1.5, Nikola 1.5, and Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Jaren Jackson, Zach LaVine is at 1.4, Jalen Williams, LeBron, DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Paolo Banchero, Tyler Heroes on the top end, Anthony Edwards, Steph, Jalen Johnson, Franz Wagner away. All like you got to go down 60 spots to get to it. It's him. It's him. Then Trey. I think it's him. Kyle Kuzma. And I forgot who the other guy is.
So
But
like,
yeah. So.
and for anyone who's going to say, because I mean, I'm fed up at this point with like, oh, y'all hating on Jalen. It's like, bro, when you lead the team in field goal attempts and usage, that means you're the guy. That means the team is using you as the guy. Okay. So with that comes the expectations, and it comes good or bad. When the team succeeds, you can take credit for that because you're leading the way. In his case, I'm not even sure he can do that because when you look at the actual numbers and the on and off and the net rating and all that, like they are just significantly better without him so far.
Plus
So
19.
plus 19 without him?
I think it moved to plus 19.
Oh my
I'll
God.
double check. I'm not even trying to rag on Jay because I'm going to try to defend him a little bit after you go. But
Look, the
the
only
numbers
the only
were
positive
crazy.
that I've heard, and I agree with this, but it's the process looks better. But at some point,
Right.
he looks a little more comfortable, right? Like he can play make and he runs things and like he just looks a little more comfortable. But at some point,
Yeah.
we just got to be real with ourselves and be like, yo, that is some kind of what's the word? Self-deluding. It's deluding is
Yeah.
it's going too far, but like we're really trying to make sense of it when we start like so you tell me does any team in the league, would any team in the league, and I'm not talking about like, oh, we could take a chance to rehabilitate his value. I'm saying right now, is there any team in the league that would want him taking 17 shots a game on their team if they have any hopes of winning games at all?
No, not a winning franchise. Not a team that's trying to make the playoffs. And it is plus 19.2 with him off the court. Yeah, it's crazy. So okay, so my take is like nothing you said is wrong. It's a little. I'm going to add a little context to mine. One, the process was better to start. I don't think it's been better lately. I think he's reverting back to some really like his decision making has been poor. He's hijacking a lot of possessions. You guys know I'm not, even though he's shooting poorly, I'm not somebody that's like I don't super harp on efficiency if the process is good because I think guys goes through slumps and da da da. But when the process is bad and the efficiency is bad, at that point you become a person that hurts the team. And you could tell Udoka agrees with this because he was benched last night. And in fact, his minutes in the fourth quarter have been trending. If you don't notice, he is being replaced either by Tari or Amen, if not both, in most closing minutes of the games, which to me is the tell for a coach as to who they actually trust. I think the Jalen thing, Jalen is still a young player. Obviously, we all know that, but he's in year 4. And I think what I said to start out this season, I'm going to give everybody a blank tablet to really paint a picture of what they are. I still think it's early. I think he's painting a picture. I just can't see the image yet. But if I use historical trends, it looks like it's going to be another inconsistent season. And even if, let's say he averages out a little bit and is decent leading up to All-Star break, and then he has a great All-Star break, to me at that point, either he's going to be a bench player or a player that's going to be a number 2 or a 3 on this team. Because one thing I will say, his defense is solid for most of the time. I don't like his pick and roll defense, but his isolation for the most part has been okay. But then you look at the defense. For example, the reason Milwaukee was able to beat us is they picked on him and Fred in the post-ups. So teams that are big, shout out to the Timberwolves who are about to play, that have big guys that could cook in the post, they're going to pick on him and Fred because they're small. If I'm a coach closing out, that's why I'm going to put a Tari Eason or Amen Thompson in that spot. I already have one small guard. At least one of the other ones, for the most of the nights, can make shots. So the defense has been decent. The rebounding has been pretty good. He's still averaging about 4 or 5 rebounds a game. The assists up and down. I think to me, if the process continues to deteriorate, that's where I draw the line. And I think that's where Ime draws the line, because if you're taking the shots you're supposed to, being where you're supposed to on defense, doing all the things you're supposed to, you can live with that and leave them on the court. And if it's real hard of the shooting, you got to make that decision. That's a hard decision. That's why Jabari plays, guys. I know Jabari struggles, but Jabari's process for most of the time, except that CTE layup he attempted in transition yesterday. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God. I was like, bro,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah. But for the most part, Jabari is he just gets beat off of just talent. Sometimes some guys are just quicker than him, or he's just not that good at what he's trying to do. Jabari is like a coach's pet where he does everything right, but sometimes he just falls short. If Jalen's process is wrong, then to me, like we get to All-Star break and we're looking like last year, man. The Rockets, if and this is I'm gonna ask you this because this opens up another can of worms, and I've seen people talk about this. People are proposing that he be replaced. So if let's say you can't trade him, how do you upgrade Jaylen Green's position, or whether you can or can't trade him? The best way to upgrade Jaylen Green's position, we're going to assume obviously if we can get a Devin Booker, we can, but with the current team right now, to me, there is a people that have proposed that like a Cam Whitmore or Reed Shepard, and I know we were talking about this on Twitter, so I kind of want to hear you kind of see what you have to say. That you can replace his production by simply inserting anybody else that's like a better shooter or just a passive player. I personally don't ascribe to that thought. The reason being, I think that there are some things that Jalen that can do on the team. His ability to get in the paint, his ability to pass, which not great. He does. He is able to make some of the passes that separate him from like a Cam Whitmore. To me, the problem with the Jaylen Green conundrum on the Rockets right now is a roster issue. I don't think there's any individual person on this roster that you can put in this spot that you could say as a two guard. Now, Tari, Amen, yes, you can like mix them in. I think those have their limitations as well in the long term, but there's a lot riding on his position because he has such a unique skill set on this team as constructed that it just, I mean, I don't know what Ime is supposed to do, honestly. I mean, to me, this is a Stone issue, not an Ime issue because you can keep benching him. At some point, you're wasting him as a player and basically the team's usage of him because I really, honestly, I don't know. But I don't think it's Cam Whitmore because Cam isn't that good right now, in my opinion.
So, all right, there's a lot there. So let's unpack it. Number one, going to something you said, I don't know, 5-10 minutes ago. Şengün, you said something like you don't harp on efficiency if the process is right.
Yes.
But when the process is wrong and the efficiency is down, you're just hurting your team. Şengün's a great example of that. Şengün's efficiency is like way down from what it should be. It's like 53, I think 0.8.
Yeah.
We'll just call it, we'll round up 54%. That is not good for him, period.
For a center, yeah.
No way around that. We're about a fifth of the way through the season. Should have evened out a little bit by now. It hasn't. Not good. But his process is good, and he still does a lot of good things, and he draws double teams, and he finds open guys, and he's a go-to guy, and he draws fouls. So he does other things that are making up for it to the extent that we can give him a little bit of a pass. Also coupled with the fact that he's proven, before that he can go a whole season with good efficiency and good numbers. So he's actually proven it. So that's part one. Part two, I don't agree about Jalen's. Jalen's passing is better than Cam's, but that's like saying,
I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, I could pass better than Cam. So, but the spirit of your question, separate from who you use to replace Jaylen Green, is that I think it's time to test him out as a bench scorer. I think that like it's beyond time. Maybe you give him a few more games, but like I think he's proven beyond a doubt at this point that at least in the context of this Rockets team, he is an inconsistent player. That just is what he is. Like for me at this point, unless he goes off for the rest of the season, if he keeps doing this up and down dance where it's like 5 games, oh my God, he's crazy. 5 games, oh my God, he's the worst player in the NBA. February's terrible, March is amazing. Like that's not good. Those are bench players. Those are bench scorers, right? The inconsistency is what puts them on the bench because you can't rely on them to be that high usage, high role guy. So I think it's time to very seriously consider like, let's see if we can harness his strengths and get, squeeze some production out of that in a bench scoring role. Maybe. I still think he's just a streaky player, but we'll see. Now, who do you replace him with? Is it Cam Whitmore? No, probably not, right? Could it be Cam Whitmore in theory? Maybe. To your point, Cam Whitmore can be a black hole on offense. Cam Whitmore, I always talk about pickup ball because that's what I do. Because I think we're all normal guys who like play a little pickup at some point, and we can relate to that. Cam Whitmore's the guy at LA Fitness where it's like, he can do everything, but when you give him the ball, it is not coming back. It's going up, and you got to live with that. So guys like that are tough to play with unless they're just like amazing, right? So until Cam Whitmore can get over that part of his game, until he can mature into understanding that, like, yo, you don't have to shoot it every time you touch it, it's not going to be Cam Whitmore. In theory, Cam Whitmore's shooting could be an upgrade. I think the answer, it's either Tari or Amen. Neither are perfect. I think I lean towards Amen because Amen cuts. So I think, and Red 94 made this point on Twitter in that discussion that you referenced, where it's basically a discussion of removing Jalen from the equation and then redistributing his touches and his usage among the remaining players. So I think if you ran more through Şengün and ran more of a Shen hub, I mean, we got a Shen hub for like 2 or 3 games and it was awesome. And anytime we get a Shen hub, it just looks much, much better and more sustainable. But they keep going away from it because they're trying to force all these other things. So I think if you put Amen in and you redistribute, Amen cuts. And so by nature of putting him in, guys are going to move because he's going to move. And then when he moves, he can also pass, you know? So like you get both of those qualities. You lose the shooting, but you don't really have shooting because Jalen's shooting 30% from 3. So it's like, whatever. I think you generate a higher quality shot with Amen in. You retain that size. You increase your rebounding because he's an excellent rebounder. You pick up some cheap buckets off the offensive rebounds. You get better in transition because he's great in transition. You're better defensively because he's better defensively. And he should just play more minutes in general. I don't know what his minutes per game is right now. I don't know if you have it pulled up. It's probably like, if I had to guess, I would guess like 24 minutes a game for Amen.
He is at 25.
25. He could, I mean, no reason that he shouldn't play 30, right? So like if you just switch their minutes, I think Jalen's around like 31 per game.
Yeah.
Amen's at 25. If you play Jalen 25 minutes a game and you played Amen 31 minutes a game as the starter, I think you're automatically better. And also because Amen, he can run that pick and roll, not like Jalen, but Amen can make a skip pass to the corner. Jalen still does not do that. Jalen's mid-range has been non-existent. It's basically a turnover at this point for the Rockets. So it's not like you're losing anything from that. But yeah, Amen has better discipline. So I think you're just going to generate a higher quality shot because he's more patient and he's smarter about what type of shot to create. And I don't think he's a point guard. Like I think he's got point guard skills, but I don't think he is a point guard. So you put him next to Fred and he can just be that off-ball terror while having Fred still around. So I think that's the best solution for the Rockets. I don't know if you agree with that, but but I do agree with you that there's no perfect answer. This roster is a little flawed.
Yeah, I think that you're like I wouldn't mind Amen Thompson playing. I think he has limitations with his. I think like when you think about like shooting, for example, and maybe this is changing on Jalen. The coach, Daignault, the coach, and I've quoted this several times where and I agree with 100% what he says. A lot of in the league, shooting is more about reputation than actual efficiency. And a lot of times you build reputation through your frequency. So meaning teams are going to close out harder on a guy that shoots like 6 or 7 3-pointers a game. That's at 30% than a player that shoots 1 or 2 at 50%. It's just how they watch it on film. And that's just how the NBA is. They just frequency matters. So the reason I say that is with Jalen, he does provide some spacing that could be problematic for the team. I also think his ability to get in the paint, even though he doesn't capitalize on it as much as you would like, and he's still tunnel vision. I think that brings a little something to the team that we actually need that Amen isn't consistently providing.
But let me push back though and ask you. So the theoreticals, because I get what you're saying, right? He's willing to shoot, and he's not like a 15% shooter.
Right.
So guys will close out on him.
Yeah, they close out. Yeah.
But what does that actually translate into? Like functionally,
it depends.
You know,
it translates into spacing for the other players. That's really why I'm looking. Not really him shooting, but the fact that whoever is guarding him can't cheat as much as they can if they're guarding him in, and how that helps their rotations on the weak side for teams that are guarding Dylan or Jabari. So it kind of has a chain reaction with everything with that little bit of spacing. Now, once again, we're talking about, like you said, going from hell to the basement. I'm not saying he's Steph Curry out there and they're just like face guarding him, but that little bit of spacing does help. And if you look at the Rockets lineups, he's still a huge positive. Not him particularly. I guess he's not hurting us yet to the point where we are losing because of him. And I can think this is why Ime won't take him out the starters yet. To me, it has to get to the point where he is a negative when he is in the starting lineup, and then they would just replace that. Right now, the starters are still a positive, And when it's time to close, when you actually need not just theoretical players, you need real players to be out on the court. You can just put a Amen Thompson or Tari Eason in and say, Jalen, go sit down. Now, big picture wise is what you're asking. I'm not mad at what you said about Amen Thompson. I think it's right. You could even make a better argument for Tari Eason, in my opinion. I think he cuts. The weak side help is there. Pretty much a lot of the same intangibles Amen has, and just a better spacer. He can actually hit shots. Save yesterday because he went 0 for 7. But it's just that with Jalen and what he plays in, to me, even the bench role becomes like he's not look great with the bench units because you want your bench player to be a player that can carry those units by themselves. It really does beg the question for I go back to the roster because I don't see Ime. Actually, he's doing what he can as a coach. The reason Jabari starts, the reason Jalen gets this long leash over a lot of players, it's political. He's a first round pick. Let's not act like this is in the NBA. Guys' pick position matters. You get a longer rope than a guy that was picked late in the draft to mess up and not be as great because you want to make sure that you maximize every opportunity and make sure that we've invested years into this kid. We've invested a lot of just opportunities and reps
and now you've invested an extension into the kid
money.
as well.
Money is involved now. So I'm telling y'all, fans, he's gonna be there. Like at least this season for sure. What they do in the off season, I don't know. I really don't know. But the way it's shaking out right now, you're just gonna have to wither the inconsistencies of Jaylen Green. To me, let me just say this to anybody that's watching this: you can't be mad at anybody for talking down on his game. Like, let's stop that. Like, at some point, it is a reality. And I would say I've been pretty like not on the fence, but I've been pretty objective about Jalen. I would say I lean towards more optimistic for him because I really have a lot of hope in his upside as a player. But if there's somebody that doesn't want him to start, they are incredibly justified. The numbers prove it. If you are a basketball watcher, the film proves it. Coach Udoka is telling you this. If you're getting benched in the fourth quarters and, this late in the season, if y'all remember, my cutoff was around Thanksgiving. Whatever you start showing, that's probably what you're going to be for this. Whether the team is, we know what our team is. Good defense, shaky offense. We're going to just be a scrappy, run the ball team, grind it out, and just try to outslug you for games. If you're a team that the Chiefs come into town, the Warriors throw the ball around, they're going to beat us more likely than not. And I'm okay with that because that's a good spot to be. If a player is inconsistent at this point, they're probably inconsistent. And I'm going to hold out a little bit of hope, Roosh. I'm going to hope that he hits his post All-Star break stretch earlier than the All-Star break and then carries his post All-Star break stretch into the post All-Star break. To me, that's what's going to give me like, okay, let's see what he can do next year. Like you said, if he is just meh and we get to the All-Star break, and I don't care if he averages 40, like to me, the Rockets, if they're a serious team, they cannot invest. Not saying they have to take him off the starting five, but you can't invest all those shots into him. He should not be taking the most shots on the team if he can't make those buckets. And to me, that is where even like right now, they could make that change. He shouldn't be getting the most shots until he can earn them. But I don't know what they're going to do. Honestly, I really don't know.
Very random note. When you said serious, my phone, and it just did it again, thought you said Siri and
Let's go.
Popped up. It popped up like the microphone popped up from hearing you. So that's funny. So
that was very random, incredibly.
I mean, it just happened. I was like, it's just like, it's crazy. So look, here's the thing. He hasn't even been meh though. If he was like meh, I could let it ride. He has been very bad. And what's even worse about it is his first 5 games were actually really good.
Yeah,
and
man.
then ever since then, so he's propped up by like a hot first 5. It's not like it's been steadily kind of whatever. It was like propped up by a hot first 5 and then just sunk. So that, like, to me, that's worse because it signals the lack of consistency. If anything, the consistency is focused in how bad he's actually been. Someone in my mentions brought this up, so shout out to whoever that person was. I can't remember the account. They compared it to your point about like, yo, he's not sinking the team, so he's not really going to be benched until and unless that happens. It's similar to the Rockets when they had Ryan Anderson, okay? Not the first year, right? We had Ryan Anderson, Eric Gordon that first year. We surprised everyone, won like 55 games or whatever, 3 seed, lost to the Spurs in the second round. But the second year, that summer, we signed PJ Tucker.
Yeah.
and Luke
Chris.
Mbamute.
And Chris, yeah.
And we traded for Chris Paul, right? PJ Tucker did not start until I think February, maybe January.
Is that right? I don't remember
Yeah.
that, but maybe, yeah.
I'm gonna look this up real quick.
Now you might be right.
But someone
You might be
basically
right.
likened it to like, yo, we were really good with Ryan Anderson, but then we became incredible. Yeah, PJ Tucker only started 34 games in the regular season.
That's crazy how I just forgot
season.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone in my mentions brought that up. Let me see the first. He started a couple. I guess someone might have been hurt in November of that year, but he didn't start frequently until February 7th, 2018. And then he started.
Didn't Ryan have like ankle injury or something like that?
I can't remember. I think Ryan Anderson might have gotten hurt.
He got hurt and came back trash. I think that's what it was. He was just different, and they never looked back.
It's either that or, yeah, Ryan Anderson didn't play in the first game PJ started, so maybe he was hurt in the first game of like the consistent ones that PJ started. So maybe he was hurt. But anyways, they were really good with Ryan Anderson. I mean, they were the 1 seed still. But then when they got PJ, it was like, whoa, this is a totally like takes it to the next level, right? So I kind of view it like that. It's like, yeah, are we probably going to be pretty good despite Jalen if he starts and they do what they've been doing? Most likely, yeah. But I think there's another level to unlock if you actually make the switch and like optimize. It's about optimization, right? So I mean, because if you look at it, when do the Rockets usually? And I'm going off eye test here. I didn't look this up in terms of numbers, but just the feel I've gotten watching the season. They usually make their run sometime in the second quarter, sometime in the third quarter, maybe. It's usually when the bench comes in.
It's when the bench comes in. Usually the first subs now I'm noticing is
Amen and Tari.
Amen and Tari come in. And there's a lineup that Ime likes to spam, which is Amen, Tari, Dylan, Şengün, and either Jalen or Fred. I think it was early on, it was Jalen, and then he started going to Fred more in that lineup. So he knows that's his lineup that he likes to go cook in.
Just based on Jalen's on and off numbers, it's probably I'm just guessing, but it's probably Fred, right?
Well, more Jalen, recently, yeah. You gotta remember, Fred started off playing like Jalen did.
Yeah, he did.
So they just
switched. Fred got hot for like 5 or 9, and now he's had a really rough season. But the point is, they usually make their run when those guys come in. And Amen and Tari, from what I've seen lately, wow, I combined lately and recently, and it became recently.
New word.
What I've seen recently is Amen and Tari first off the bench for Jalen and Jabari, right? Which makes sense. So
yeah,
I think at some point, I mean, that has to really be the serious consideration, unless he turns it around. But again, and to your point about people that are like mad that fans are fed up with Jalen, if you are that person, you are very distinctly in the minority. And frankly, at this point, if you are that person, hey, bless you, think what you want, but you are going strictly off of hope and belief and nothing else, because there is nothing in the numbers. There is nothing in the eye test that justifies that. He's an athlete. He's a really good athlete. If he was an average athlete, he's not getting this type of rope, right? But at the end of the day, this is a league. Athleticism, guys whose game is predicated on athleticism and that only thrives because of athleticism, those are role players usually, right? They will jump over your head and throw it down. They will lock you up with athleticism. They will get up and down the court with athleticism. If you don't have actual skill, you're not going to be one of those guys. Rudy Gobert, right? He's gifted. He's 7'1", whatever. If he had skill, Rudy Gobert would be one of the best centers in the league, period. Yeah. But he's a defensive specialist because he doesn't have the skill. And you can go down the list and find all these guys, right? Skill is what separates you. Anthony Edwards is a phenomenal athlete. Anthony Edwards is also incredibly skilled. Footwork, shooting ability, touch,
every IQ. I mean,
IQ, and that's the other thing, by the way, that makes me lean towards Amen is the IQ. Tari just like goes full force. He is like a human crash out on the court in a good way. But Amen elevates that IQ and then puts another high IQ player in the starting lineup. And so for what he lacks with shooting and for what the team won't get if guys cheat off of him, he is smart enough to take advantage of that, right? And he'll cut, and then that creates extra problems because now guys got to go with the cut, and then cross-court skip is open to Dylan or whatever, right? So, but that's the issue, and the extension for Jaylen makes it to where you can't trade him this year. I mean, you can technically, but the logistics of what that trade will look like are very, very hard to overcome. So most likely, Jaylen ain't going anywhere
He's
until
not.
the summer at the earliest. So you're stuck with it.
He's not. I think his issues are compounded by Fred VanVleet. Um, in my opinion, and once again, I love Fred. I think that he has a cap on his game just by the way he plays. Because in my opinion, one of the things that you and Red 94 brought up was once again the redistribution of the shots. If you replace Jalen with a offensive player, to me, all it's going to do is kind of expose what we saw last night when Jalen was on the bench, and the Rockets' identity is either going to be a Fred and Şengün pick and roll or Şengün in the post. And the reason that popped up in my head is you were talking about a man and cutting. Ryan pointed out on the commentary, Şengün was yelling for them to cut while he was in the post up. Like he was telling somebody to cut, which is the stupidest. Like that's the craziest. Like they were all just standing there staring at him, and he was like, "Somebody cut," because basketball 101, a guy gets a post up, you're supposed to clear out.
Yeah.
At least because that takes one person at least out of that action. If you stand there and the whole defense is loaded, there's really nothing they can do. And once that, to me, then that goes back to Ime. Like, what are we doing? But I think there's two parts to our team that's lacking right now. And as much as I want to say, I think Jalen's part is probably easier to fix because his is either reduces minutes or you can just bring in a league level replacement, and still kind of relatively be the same team. I think the really higher echelon for this Rockets team is Fred's role because he's our point guard, the main ball handler, the guy that makes a decision, gets guys in the sets, the one that you pair up with your best player in Şengün. And if he is very limited in what he can do, if they can upgrade that point guard position to actually have a dynamic guard that can shoot, can pass, that is what to me is the missing piece right now. Because, and to me, like as we talk about the team's future and what like we really unlock what the Rockets are trying to do, that lead ball handler role is so shaky right now for us because it's relying on Reed Shepherd, who is a rookie, and like you said, you don't know what he is. I love what I saw from him yesterday shooting wise, but on defense they were hunting him. He's small.
Yeah.
And he gets punked by a lot of these bigger players in the NBA, the wings and the guard.
What do you think would happen if you swap Jalen just straight up with Zach LaVine?
We'd be probably have 3 more wins. We'd be a better team, obviously a better team, way better team. But I think if you swapped out Fred VanVleet with like Jalen Brunson or somebody like that, what would that be for?
That's an all-star.
Zach can be an all-star on a healthy full year. Okay, so below all-star player. Let's see. Swap out Fred VanVleet with the guard from Cleveland. What's his name? The little dude.
Darius Garland's an all-star.
Garland. Well, like 10 years ago. Zach LaVine made an all-star, bro. Let's if we're gonna play that game.
Well, so here's the framing for it though. Jalen's supposed to be number 2 pick, like the comp. I mean, right. Zach LaVine was literally the comp. We know what Fred is. Fred is like a game managing shit. Fred made an all-star, actually.
Low key while we playing. Yeah.
So but like I view Fred as I guess what I'm arguing here is you're not wrong. If you upgraded Fred to like a star level player, absolutely, right? But if Jalen was just a Zach LaVine, my favorite comp is not even a comp, but my favorite hypothetical, and it really makes people mad, but it's how much better would the Rockets be if you just swap Jalen for somebody like Max Strus? How about this? What if you swapped Jalen for Dalton Connect?
Nah, that'd be nuts. Yeah.
He can shoot. He's athletic. Yes, Fred, especially for how much he's getting paid, it's problematic. But I think Fred is a very good game manager. The issue is we need Fred to be more than a game manager, largely in part because Jalen can't take that next step. So like we're asking Fred to be something that Fred is not, and he's never going to be, right? Like Fred could be our Mike Conley. Fred could be our, whatever, you know what I mean? But it's that 2 spot that's just like, there's no,
I can see that.
Nothing dynamic there. And that's the issue. When Jalen is dynamic, we look great,
Okay. So let me see. You're saying that because of what's lacking at the 2 guard position, Fred is overcompensating with his play. You're saying if you put a dynamic player at the 2 guard, then the reliance on the game managing point guard isn't as
Correct.
needed. Where I'm
Correct.
saying, I guess okay. So we're saying kind of the same thing because I'm saying that I'm looking at it that if you put that a guard version of that dynamic player at the one guard, then you don't rely as much on the two guard. But you're saying since Fred's baseline is better than Jalen's already, if
Yes.
you replace that two guard, you're actually going to raise the ceiling of the team rather than
Correct.
having a
Correct.
low. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
And
well,
to
okay.
further that, if you did replace Fred with, a high ceiling star guard, now what you need from Jalen is totally different to the point that you don't need Jalen. You need someone else. You need like a movement shooter or something instead of Jalen, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that, it's
yeah.
like a give and take to me.
No, that's a good point.
And
That's a
so,
good point.
because it's like, I mean, we know what Fred is. And you know what makes the offense actually go is, and it worked against somebody that we crushed the other night that I can't remember. Maybe it was
Chicago
Chicago. Yeah, we just said that same
beat
time.
them by
Might have
like
been
50
Chicago.
points. But yeah,
So Fred was doing. Shingun would be at the elbow. He'd give him the handoff, and Fred would take the one dribble midi pull up off the curl. Okay,
yep.
and he was making it, and it's a shot he can make. And I think he might have made one of them in crunch time last night against
Yeah, he
Portland.
did.
We were trying to make the run. That's a shot he can take. It's a shot at this point with what we currently have is a shot we need him to take because
Yeah.
when he makes that shot, it unlocks everything else. Defenders now step up. Now there's more space. Guys are out of position. When he's not taking that shot, we're just curling into nothing and then jacking some shit up, but he can actually hit that shot, and he's not going to be an all-star for hitting that shot, but he can be a better version of what he is, and it can actually make the offense. Because now, look, Fred comes off the curl, one dribble pull up, makes a couple. Okay, defender steps up. When he steps up, now there's a pocket pass right to Şengün. No one is at the rim, or one person's at the rim instead of two. Like it just, or defender steps up, baseline cut is now open. We need a go-to shot, and right now the only go-to shot we have is a Şengün post up, but Şengün is not efficient right now.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, honestly, one of the best shots we've gotten lately is a Dylan 3, which doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking like the team is actually in the spot. I'm trying to think of teams that have been as good defensively that have had good offenses, and most of them, I'm thinking they just have all world level player, one player at least that's an engine to really drive that offense and be a top tier defense. Like we're 2 or 3 in the league in defensive efficiency. Because I think collectively,
Jimmy Butler in Miami, maybe.
but even Jimmy's inefficient.
Yeah.
He becomes an engine in the playoffs, but most of the year
Yeah.
he's like a role player. He's like a pretty much like Tari Eason or to me, it's like to play that level of defense, you sacrifice that. Like that team defense, like it's not a coincidence the Rockets have trouble shooting, especially on extended like back-to-back games, because the level of defense we play is so intense.
Yeah.
We want to hang our hat on that. A lot of teams don't care about defense in the regular season, and they'll save what we're doing for the playoffs. I'm telling you, there's a bad defense right now that will turn into us in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Dallas Mavericks of the, these teams that like, they just don't care. And we've seen that on some of our teams. So the reason I'm saying that, one thing that happens in the playoffs, everybody's efficiency tanks. And unless you have a prime James Harden or a LeBron or one of these guys that they can play on multiple back-to-back and still go get theirs, their game is just that. Their game is their game. It's really going to be hard to sustain shooting efficiency, to play good on extended, stretches of games, 5 out of 7 nights. So we just have to consider that. I mean, to the question, like you said, I think Jalen is going to be here. I'm curious what Ime is going to do to try to mitigate some of these things, but it is not great that our 4th-year number 2 overall pick, it's still looking as the same player as he did his his rookie, sophomore, 3rd year in the league. This is not great, and I hope that he is able
one
to
way to get
bounce
over
back.
that.
What's
One way
that?
to get over that is to cut off the ball, and it's not going to be like Rip Hamilton. But if you have an athlete who can get to the rim without the ball in his hands and can just focus on being an athlete and catch and take a dribble and rise up, it can help you a little.
That's an off-season move, brother. That's not something you can change mid-season though. Like a play style, that's a philosophical change in his game.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
Yeah, I don't see that. I haven't seen that. I know you said that, and I didn't. To me, I think people ripped you because, and pun on the word rip, because you said Rip Hamilton. I think you could have said, I mean, anybody that really played, even not even Rip. To me, like even a Fox when Fox and Sabonis, Fox's game is very like off screen pull up, like off screen pull up, handoff, pull up,
Yep.
two dribble, pull up. It's very efficient. And now he's getting into his driving game a little bit more this season. But to me, that's even Jamal Murray, even though he's been pretty bad, he's been really bad recently. But when he was in his peak with Jokic, he is not an athlete. He is not a guy that's gonna like destroy you. But it was a lot of just two dribble pull ups. Even
He
Ant
just
in the
come around
playoffs.
the screen, take the handoff,
Yeah,
boom.
take the hand off, take the easy shot. And to me, that's a philosophical view on basketball that I don't think he was trained on. That's like a school of thought
I
that
agree.
I don't think that's where he's from. He's from a different school of thought. And the reason I'm saying that, I don't see that happening. So I think that
It won't.
either, yeah,
It
he
won't.
has to get good at what he does. Like either get good at what he does, or the Rockets coming in next season. If this is the year, like up and down with Jalen, then like they have to make a change because it's like you're hijacking your team, for one
Another
person.
thing you said, you mentioned efficiency with dribbles. Jalen's over dribbling so much too. That's
Yeah.
one thing that's killing me. Like he'll just pound it and then pull it
Yeah.
back, and it's just and then step back, and it's like, man,
That's part of the process issues I've had recently. He remember when we did a pod, what was that? We were bragging about how well in the preseason he was playing off ball,
yeah,
like a lot of catch and shoots, a lot of just things where he wasn't the main action. And I think like when you play sports, to me, when what you trained on to get better at doesn't work, guess what guys do? They revert back to old reliable.
yep.
And I think that's what he's doing. He's comfortable trying to like ISO, and he's not getting around people. I mean, I
He
just hope
never
he gets
has,
better.
Frank. He never has, even from rookie season. His blow bys weren't really blow bys. Somebody was always hip to hip with him. Like
Yeah,
I think that was one thing that stunned me, and it was one thing that started to change my mind because I was like, oh, I thought he was like going to blow by people. He's not. And so if you can't blow by people and you can't shoot and finishing, he's been better at finishing, but for a while, most of his career he wasn't great at finishing. It's like, what's the recipe? Last thing I'll say, when you're a main ball handler and defenses load up on you, you have to be able to do one of two things, and the best guys, the elite guys, can do both of these things. One, you have to be able to rise up and make tough shots consistently or with some reliable level of consistency. He has failed that box. Two, you have to be able to pass. And I don't mean just kick it to the person that's wide open right next to you. I mean, you are manipulating a defense because you're drawing an extra defender and then you're making them pay for sending an extra defender to you. Usually it comes in the form of a skip pass over to the corner, usually. His only pass he can make is that pocket bounce pass, and he can make that pass, but that's all he's got. So when he handles the ball, what we are subjected to is it's a pick and roll. He comes around the pick. He either pulls up for the midi, which he has not been making. He gets to the basket, which has mixed results. Sometimes he goes to the line. Sometimes he finishes. Or he gives the pass to Şengün, and it's very predictable, and the defenders are loaded up and ready for it, and now Şengün's like got to dance and twirl and go over two guys. That's it. So if he's unable to make that difficult shot, and if he's unable to do something other than pocket bounce pass to Şengün, he either one, we're in trouble, or two, he's got to figure out something else. And he has not really shown anything to give confidence in that. And that's the big issue.
I'll coach him back. I'm gonna coach Jalen back into this. What he has to do, get back to what you were doing in the offseason, bro, in the preseason. Trust your game, trust the process. Don't hijack possessions. Play within the context of the game, and the shots are going to fall whether they do or not. But just because, once again, back to like with the Cam Whitmore thing, I don't mind players that take the shots they're supposed to take, but when you hijack possessions, you're killing your team.
If you don't have something, move it, reposition.
Yeah, move it. Just move it. And so that's what, if he just does that and lets the game come back naturally to him, where we know he gets hot, he's streaky. When you have a heater, go ahead and you can do your thing then. And we've seen him go off for big points, but that's all the part of the maturation. I'm sure Ime's working with him on that. We'll see what they do. They have a big matchup coming up against Minnesota on Tuesday in the in-season tournament. To me, personally, I think that they're a bad matchup for us, just like the Bucks are, because they can hunt us on multiple fronts. It used to be teams used to hunt the pick and roll with Şengün. That's not a first option hunt anymore because he's been really, really good guarding the pick and rolls, and one of the best in the league actually at the 5 position. And now they're hunting our guards not only on drives, but also on post up. So I think that's a team with Julius Randle, with Ant.
But they were much better. They were a bad matchup for us with Cat and Gobert. I think it'll be a little easier with Julius.
Yeah, it's a little easier.
But
But just like with the Bucks and a little bit with the Blazers, their post up when teams post up Fred and Jalen and our smaller players, it forces us to have to double. Yeah. And that's where they get loose on the threes, and that's one of the ways we've been getting exposed. So we'll see. What do you think about that game? Do you think we're going to win or lose? I'm going to put you on the spot.
I will say we come out and win. Why not?
Dub, bounce back.
It's a cup game, right?
Yes.
So they've shown up for those games, and that's one positive is they have shown up for those games, and they look. I think if they win one more, they'll advance or whatever. So that's kind of exciting. That they'll play for something. I don't really care about the cup. I think it's kind of dumb, but
I do.
I don't. You like it?
I love it for a young team. I think for a Lakers team, no, like bro, you're trying to win championships. For a team that's the younger, the Orlandos of the world, I think it's a big deal just to get some expectations of winning.
I like it for that reason. Big picture, it feels like super forced. Like they're trying to make it happen, and it's kind of like it's whatever. But I don't hate it. It's fine. I like the courts, but anyways, so yeah, they've come to play in the cup games. They came to play last year in the cup games too, so they've taken those seriously. So I think we come out and win. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, all right. We got you got us winning. I'm not gonna say it. Let me not put that in the air. Did you hear the Kendrick Lamar album yet? Randomly.
Yes, I had one run through it. TV off with gunplay is.
Yeah, I love that. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, I love the album. Love the album. Love it.
Yeah.
I've listened to it at least 25 times, I think.
I also love Reincarnated. He's
with
like
the Pac thing. Yeah. That was really dope. Let's bring creativity back to hip hop. Appreciate you, bro. We gave y'all an hour-long pod on the hiatus from your boy Roosh, so we got an hour in. Appreciate y'all. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you comment on the videos as well. We love to interact with you guys. Y'all know Roosh, he's a little nicer than me. I will argue with you. So you know what I mean? Don't come in and say something, then start acting all funny when I say something back. On the Chop Shop channel, I get on there and I will argue. I don't care. This is not ESPN. So yeah, appreciate y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop. We're gonna keep dropping that fire.